Okay, so this video will be about hypotheses, materials, and procedures. So the first topic is a hypothesis. Now this would be pronounced hypotheses with an E right here if it's plural. So if you're talking about more than one hypothesis, it would be hypotheses. That's why I say it a little bit different. So a hypothesis is an educated guess about what you think is going to happen in an investigation. So you basically say, here's my question, what do I think the answer is? And it's not just something you randomly guess at. You try to use information that you have and previous knowledge that you've learned. So it's an educated guess. You should have some idea of what might happen. It should directly answer your question. So if your question is, like in our last video, what effect does bleach have on the bacteria in pond water, your hypothesis should answer that question. If I add more bleach to the water, then there will be fewer bacteria. It directly answers the question I'm asking. If your hypothesis does not answer your question, it talks about something different, you need to reword it so that it answers your question. It also needs to be worded as an if-then statement. If I do this, then this will happen. If I change this, then this will be the result. So the if is our independent variable. If I change the independent variable, then is the dependent variable. So then the dependent variable will react in this way. So if I add more bleach, then there will be fewer bacteria in the water. Independent variable, dependent variable. So you make sure that you word it. If I do this, then this will happen. And then lastly, it is okay if your hypothesis is wrong at the end of your investigation. I have a lot of students who freak out at the end of science fair when they realize their hypothesis is not actually what happened, that they were wrong. And that's okay. The process is important, not the final answer. So going through the steps and doing the investigation is more important than whether your hypothesis was correct or not. A lot of really good scientific information has come about by accident, by things we didn't know would happen, and were a pleasant surprise when the investigation was completed. We also make sure that we do a hypothesis, that we make one, so that we can compare our results to what we thought would happen. If our results are very different than what we thought would happen, we need to figure out why. Were we just wrong, and that's the way it is? Or did we make a mistake in our investigation? Or was there something we overlooked that could have affected our results? So your hypothesis gives you a good comparison point for the end of your investigation. Okay. The next step in our lab report are the materials. And materials are the items that are used during an investigation. It's all the stuff. It's anything that you use. Okay? Then make sure that you write it as a list. So this should not be in paragraph form. It should just be written paper, pencils, clipboard, water, bleach, glass jar, etc. Just write it as a list. Just write them all out. Make sure that you're very specific on your materials list. Include your brands, your size, your color, etc. So if I use bleach in my investigation, I would want to say if I used the Target brand or Clorox or some other brand. I want to say what brand of bleach I used. What size of bottle did you get? Is it a gallon? Was it a half gallon? How much did you get? That can affect your results. If there's a color, especially if you're doing like a pot or a plant, what color of plant did you use? Did you use white roses or red roses? Did you use a terracotta pot or a metal pot? Make sure you're as specific as possible. Someone should be able to come along and recreate your investigation off of just your information that's written down. And they can't do that unless you're very specific. So if you just say bleach, they might buy a different brand and a different amount. They might buy smelling good smell bleach or regular bleach. They have no idea what type of bleach to buy unless you list it. So again, make sure your materials list is incredibly, very highly specific. So a procedure is a list of steps of what you did in your investigation. This is where you tell how you're going to do your investigation or how you did it. There should be a numbered list of steps. It should say 1, I did this. 2, next I did this. 3, after that I did this. This should not be written in paragraph form. You should use complete sentences, but it should not be written as just one continuous written statement. It should be broken down into a list of steps, a lot like a recipe if you're cooking. Again, just like with the materials, you make sure you're as specific as possible and that you include everything. I like to say that if you are writing a lab report, you need to act as if the person reading it is in kindergarten. You need to write out your steps, step by step, every single thing you did. If you think, if we're doing the bleach in water, if you think that it's not important to write, pour the bleach into the water, you would be mistaken. Make sure you include every little tiny step. Because if you assume that they're going to know what you mean, they may not. If someone reads your lab report without you there to explain it, they should be able to exactly recreate your experiment. The procedure also is a good place to come back to when you're done. If your results are different or not quite what you expected, you can look at your procedure and see, did I make a mistake? Was there a step I skipped or I could have done differently? It's really good to look back at the end of your investigation to kind of see where you can improve for next time.